Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics. Campaign season is very hot. End of Oktoberfest even. We're going to jump right into this with State Senator Tony Luetkemeyer from the Northland. Thank you so much for making the time, Senator.
Thanks, Scott, for having me on the show.
So I wanted to have you come on because, in Missouri, the statewide elections get a lot of attention, but I'm not sure there's a ton of doubt as to how statewide elections are going to go. For the last 10 years, they've pretty much been tracking, if you're a Republican, you're going to do well. But there are three very impactful state Senate races that I would argue probably make more of a difference than most of the statewide races themselves, and you're right at the heart of the Republican effort to hold the supermajority. Let's jump into the races. Let's first talk about Bill Eigel's seat, the 23rd. I've observed a lot of North County Democrats have moved to St. Charles County, some of them because they became Republicans, but some of them have stayed Democrats. That district has gotten more middle of the road since Tom Dempsey left. Now you have Adam Schnelting, a legislator, a House member, who won a tough primary against maybe not the Democrats' top recruit. That district seems safe. Am I wrong?
No, I think you're exactly right. Your analysis is really the same as mine. You know, the 23rd senatorial district is a seat that has certainly got more competitive over the years, but it's still a positive Republican district. So when you poll it, there are more Republicans that live in the district than there are Democrats. As you mentioned, we have current state representative and Army National Guardsman Adam Schnelting, who is the Republican nominee for that seat. He won a very tough competitive primary. This is a seat where the Democrats really didn't actively recruit a candidate, and I think it shows. And so I think Adam's going to have.
I think they did recruit. I just think they weren't able to land. And no disrespect to Mr. Williams. I just think that if you really, we're going to have Doug Beck on next. I think if Doug was honest, I think he would say, I wish we could have swung a little harder there. I think they tried. I just don't think they got the right person to click.
Well, and that may be, I guess a better way of saying it is they probably didn't get the most stellar candidate they could have if they really wanted to put their best foot forward and try to flip that seat. And so, I think Adam is going to have the financial advantage in the race. He's clearly going to have the grassroots and ground game advantage in the race. And I think we hold this seat in November.
Is it true in the 23rd, different than, say, the 15th, which we'll talk about later? I think, obviously, Amendment 3, it looks like it's going to poll well when folks vote on it. But as far as the intensity, I'm not sure the intensity exists in St. Charles County as it does in St. Louis County, that you're going to not only vote for Amendment 3, that you're going to punish Republicans on down the ballot like Adam Schnelting. I don't feel that intensity in the 23rd.
Yeah, I think that's right. I don't know that I necessarily feel that intensity in any of the competitive races we're going to talk about. I mean, we've seen time after time after time where Missouri voters on a particular ballot measure will vote for something that on its face seems like a more progressive measure, and then vote, for Republicans for statewide office and for legislative offices. And so I don't know that it really is going to have that big of an electoral impact. We're obviously paying attention to it. We don't discount it, but we've seen many times in Missouri history where people have decoupled their votes and voted for a more progressive ballot measure, but at the same time voted for Republican candidates.
I've asked some Democrats this. I want to ask you, take your Senator Missouri Democrat or Missouri Republican caucus campaign hat off and just put your political strategist hat on for a second. I'm not sure Democrats are always that well served by legalizing marijuana, Medicaid expansion, now abortion rights. You don't have to vote for a Democrat in the legislature to get some of the policies to raise the minimum wage. I'm not sure it doesn't overall hurt the Democrat cause statewide to be able to kind of a la carte pick the positions you want from their side and still vote for the Republicans who have a whole buffet of issues you might like too.
Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting theory. I mean, I think, again, for me, the biggest takeaway politically for this upcoming election is if you look at past elections, a whole host of different issues, whether it was Medicaid expansion, legalization of marijuana, those issues have never really had an impact in terms of, bringing out more progressive voters and then having, some down ballot impact on the elected officials who are running for partisan office. It just hasn't played out in recent Missouri elections.
Let's talk about the inverse, where I do think the abortion intensity is an issue. You have a good Republican district. Andrew Koenig worked hard, won the district in the 15th by, 8-9 points in a year that Trump, I don't even know if he won the district. I think it was very competitive. Now you have David Gregory, stellar, just oozes talent, running against what I think is probably the Democrats' best recruit of the cycle in Joe Peerless, a business guy. If you talk about while the 23rd, you might say, well, the Democrats didn't hit a home run with recruiting. I think you have to admit, even you'd say, tip your hat to the other side. They did a great job in recruiting with Joe Peerless. That's a race where I think Amendment 3 may play a bigger role. Is that something you guys are tracking?
It's something we'll, like I said on the last race, we'll certainly pay attention to. This seat, the 15th, has always been viewed as a competitive seat. But Andrew Koenig, as you mentioned, he won his reelection 4 years ago handily against a similarly well-funded Democrat candidate who outraised him. And we hear a lot of the same talking points around the 15th this time around, and Andrew ended up being fine. As you mentioned, we've got David Gregory, who served 4 years in the House. He won a very competitive primary in his own right to get to this point to be the nominee. He's endorsed by law enforcement. He's a good fundraiser. I think we ultimately win this race as well, and we hold the 15th as Republicans.
Is that a concern, though? I mean, when you start talking about Andrew was the incumbent, and oddly enough, 8 years ago, he didn't even have a general election, or not a seriously competitive one. Then he had no primary, won the general as the incumbent. Now you have a person who, Representative Gregory, did not serve. His district didn't overlap very much with this Senate district. And he's running, but he came out of a tough primary. Do you feel like the wounds of the primary are healed over there?
Let me just speak from personal experience. I was in David's shoes 8 years ago myself after getting through a very difficult primary and then having a very challenging competitive general election when I ran.
There's a lot of similarities there. You're right about that.
2018. And I actually had a conversation with David on the phone the other day and mentioned that exact thing to him. And it's just like, all you can do is work hard, stay focused on the things that you can control, get out there, raise the resources that you need, knock the doors, visit with the voters. And I know that David's doing those things.
Okay. I know that it's the time of year the Republicans rally, but you got to tip your hat a little bit to Doug Beck. Peerless is a good recruit, right?
I actually don't know Joe Peerless. I mean, I just know of him by reputation. As compared to the 11th that we were talking about, or rather the 5th, the 23rd we were talking about earlier. Obviously the Democrats put some more focus in candidate recruitment in the 15th. There's no doubt about that.
So let's move up to the 17th, right in your neck of the woods. I honestly thought Maggie Nurnberg was going to walk into this seat, and then when Jerry Nolte come in, I think Jerry Nolte is one of the preeminent politicians in this state. He's done it. He's been a state rep, county commissioner. I almost think in a district that is weighted toward the Democrats, people don't view Jerry Nolte as your typical Republican. They view him as Jerry Nolte.
Yeah, Jerry's a great candidate. This is probably just from a Democrat versus Republican perspective. This is the most competitive district by the numbers. It's the only one that leans a little bit Democratic. It's interesting. It was actually, the seat was previously held by a Republican, but it flipped Democrat during a special election in 2017. And every poll that I've seen in this race, every single poll, no matter who conducts the poll, it's a margin of error race. And this is probably a seat where we as Republicans wouldn't be as focused on it, but we've got a great candidate with Jerry Nolte. Jerry served 8 years in the House, in a House seat that's in the heart of that Senate district. He's been elected twice countywide as the presiding commissioner. He's got great name ID. He's a great campaigner. The fact that his opponent has been on broadcast TV for the better part of 3 weeks and is still polling within the margins shows you really all you need to know. You never underestimate.
It shows it a close race, but it shows it a close race with Maggie having the advantage. Is that what you've seen?
Yeah, I mean the poll. I mean, I've seen polling. I've seen polling. That has had him up by 1. I've seen a poll that had him up by 3. I've seen a poll that had her up by 3. Her up by 1. My point is, I've not seen a poll up to this point that has her outside of the margin of error. And if you're a candidate that's spending, in the Kansas City media market, hundreds of thousands of dollars on broadcast TV this far out, and you haven't moved the numbers more than a point or two, I would be very worried about that if I were the Democrats.
Well, I think part of that is, though, Jerry Nolte's name ID has to be off the charts in Clay County.
Yes.
Where Maggie probably, although she has some name ID to be a stamp, she probably had to raise that up. It will be interesting to see how that turns out. from the numbers I've seen, the intensity on Amendment 3, while it does poll well throughout the state, the intensity is much greater in St. Louis than it is anywhere else in the state, including Kansas City. I think Nolte, I think he might benefit. I honestly think, take your voting record, right? Very conservative. I think you'd have a challenge maybe winning this very swing seat with your very conservative voting record. I don't think people view Jerry as that partisan, really rough-edged Republican, which is probably the reason he's polling so well, right?
Yeah, and Jerry too. One of the things that Jerry is really known for in the Northland, there was a rather public split between the commission several years ago having to do with funding for the sheriff's department. And Jerry was on the side of law enforcement in that particular fight, got a lot of media coverage and a lot of interest over here in Kansas City. And people remember Jerry from that. When people think of Jerry Nolte, they think about a guy who backs our men and women in law enforcement, that's a common sense Republican. And that's really Jerry's brand in the Northland. And I think it fits the district very well.
You know a little something about running on support of law enforcement, right?
I do, yeah. I've worked very closely with law enforcement during my 6 years in the Senate. I've been proud to do that. My uncle is a retired police officer in St. Louis, so law enforcement is very important to me and my family, and it's been one of my great honors in the Senate to get to work with those guys.
Let's talk about a seat that is kind of your pickup. Going to lose Boone County to the Democrats, but really the pickup, probably the one you'd be focused on, is the 11th. Huge shoes to fill, whoever wins it, in Senator Rizzo. You have Joe Nicola, a minister there in the district, versus Robbie Sauls, an attorney and a state legislator. It feels like, can you imagine saying this? I have an old blue book that has Ronnie DePasco's Senate district and name on it. To think Ronnie DePasco's Senate district now, the RPI favors Republicans, it's an amazing shift in the world.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I agree with your analysis on the 11th. This is a district that's probably the most favorable of the four from a pure Democrat versus Republican perspective. It's a district that has demographically shifted and started trending more and more Republican with each election cycle. Trump won the seat in 2020 by, I believe, around 8%. I feel confident this is a seat that we will flip in November, and so that's my prediction, is that the 11th goes from Democrat to Republican.
You're extremely familiar with the Jackson County, Kansas City media market. I found it interesting how it feels as though the Republicans have picked up, really under Trump, is when this went on accelerated, have picked up 2 or 3 votes in independents in northeastern Jackson County, while Trump has cost you maybe a vote or two in the Lee Summit, southwestern Jackson County area. But it does feel like independence has accelerated Republican far faster than Lee Summit has trended Democrat. This may be the capstone to prove that, right? I mean, Senator Rizzo was a rare type of politician who could, unite people in a very unique way. It might be the last gasp of Democrats there for a while.
It's hard to predict that far into the future, but certainly in the near term, this feels like a Republican seat. The home of Harry Truman is turning into a Republican seat.
Is it a Republican seat or is it a Trump seat?
Well, both. I think it's both. At the moment, I think it's one and the same. But yes, I do think President Trump is going to win that seat, and I do believe Joe Nicola is going to win that seat.
Extrapolate forward, it feels to me like the Democrats, let's say Crystal Quaid, does she poll better than Nicole Galloway on Election Day?
I don't think so. Partly because I just think that Mike Kehoe is such a transformative leader, just in Missouri politics in general, but particularly in our party. He's somebody, talked about Senator Rizzo earlier, who's a dear friend, being a bridge builder. I can think of nobody in Missouri politics that has been more of a bridge builder than Mike Kehoe. And he's done it at all levels. He's done it at the legislature. He's done it in the executive branch. And I think that Mike, in many ways, transcends politics, traditional partisan politics for a lot of people. And I think that Mike is going to win, and I think he's going to win big.
Senator Tony Luetkemeyer, thank you so much for the time. Good luck. Maybe we can talk to you on election night. See if these predictions actually come true.
Great.
I guess we could talk to you for sure if they come true, right?
Yeah, well, if my predictions look good, then yes, please come on and talk about all this.
Senator, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Scott, for having me on.
We'll be right back with Senator Doug Beck. He's going to give us the Democrat side of these Senate races right after this.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
I've been teaching for 22 years. I'm also the mom of a 9th and 6th grader. Education is really important to me, and that's why I'm voting for Amendment 2. By legalizing sports betting, Amendment 2 will generate more than $100 million for our schools over the next 5 years. Amendment 2 will help pay excellent teachers more, and it will improve our schools. Take it from this classroom teacher. Amendment 2 is the right thing to do.
We have 2 beautiful boys, but along the way, we had 3 miscarriages. I'll never forget the day the ultrasound tech just left the room. There was a complication. An abortion was the right decision for us, a private medical decision. Missouri's abortion ban is terrifying. There are no exceptions, and doctors can't provide care to women miscarrying. Vote yes on Amendment 3 because these decisions belong to us, not politicians.
You know, Missouri farmers have been doing what's best for their land for generations. After all, no one knows what it takes to feed and fuel a growing global population better than they do. So why are trial lawyers threatening Missouri farmers' best defense against weeds? Our farmers don't need to be controlled. They need to be supported. Keep glyphosate in our state. Show your support at TakeControlMissouri.com. Paid for by Modern Ag Alliance in support of Missouri farmers.
Data captured by our state-of-the-art monitors helps us pinpoint the timing and location of severe weather more accurately and respond to trouble more quickly. Ameren Missouri's investment in smart technologies like this is one way we're improving reliability and restoring power faster than ever. Responding to trouble before trouble hits. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back this week in Missouri politics. And now we're going to go to South County, St. Louis, and talk to Senator Doug Beck, the man leading up the Democrats' Senate campaign effort. Senator, thank you so much for the time.
Thanks for having me, Scott. Appreciate it.
Folks that watch the midweek update are very accustomed to me talking to the flat Doug version of you we have in the studio. So 3D Doug's going to be a treat for everybody.
Yeah, this one gets to talk back, so yeah.
Well, sometimes I pretend like you talk back. We actually have some of the best conversations, me and the flat version of you.
And I'm not quite sure I would respond the same way to some of your things, but that's fine.
That's probably right. Let's talk a little politics, though. Let's start with maybe these Senate races. Let's start with the one that might be a bit of a long shot, but let's see what you think. The 23rd, lots of North County Democrats have moved over into St. Charles County. Adam Schnelting, probably the candidate you wanted to run against of the two. How does that race stack up?
Yeah, I think, and I'll be honest, our candidate hasn't had a really great fundraising season so far. He has some shortcomings, but he's a really good guy. He's working. I know he's working hard. They're canvassing. They're talking to folks. And he's on the right side of all the issues that are in the 23rd, whether it's public schools, supporting public schools where Adam supports vouchers, whether it's supporting working people. Matt Williams supports working people. Adam Schnelting, he wants Missouri to be a right-to-work state, and he doesn't believe we should have a minimum wage, which is Proposition A, which will be on the ballot for folks to vote on. And he also thinks public unions shouldn't be able to organize, collectively bargain. So I think Matt fits the district better. The question is whether we get that message out or not.
Yeah, I think that it is interesting. I talked with Senator Luetkemeyer about intensity. I see Amendment 3 looks like it polls pretty well, throughout the state. Obviously a little better in Democrat areas. The intensity seems to be a little less in a St. Charles County. But let's talk about St. Louis County, where you're very familiar with. The intensity for Amendment 3 there seems to be off the charts.
Yeah, I think that and quite frankly in St. Louis County, Donald Trump too is a drag on the ticket. So those two things. Amendment 3 is inspiring women and across party lines too to vote for this. It's really there's a lot of intensity there for sure.
Well, there's a lot of people who consider themselves pro-life that are going to vote for Amendment 3. Am I wrong?
I agree with you, and I think the whole term pro-life and pro-choice need to be thrown out at this point because I don't think it means the same things as it used to, Scott. I mean, now we're looking at we have a total ban, right? So those are the things that are frustrating. And when you look at that, and you look at the people that fit their areas or the voters, we're asking people not only if you vote yes on Amendment 3, you need to vote for Democrats up and down the ballot, simply because Amendment 3 will not be implemented, just like they've done with puppy mills and concealed carry and Medicaid, funding or whatever. So,
well, almost to the credit of your Republican colleagues, they're saying if you vote Amendment 3, and it doesn't matter if it's 70-30, we're going to try to legislatively tear it down on day one. I mean, they're very open about their intentions.
Yeah, Senator Mary Coleman said that a couple days ago, I believe it was. Yeah, and I was like, thank you. Thank you for proving our point and helping us out, because that's our messaging, is you need to vote for Democrats up and down the ballot.
I asked Mallory Schwartz this, who's helping with the campaign on Amendment 3. At some point, if you're in the war room with your colleagues, it does feel like voters, they have some issues they like on the Republican side, a swing voter, some issues they like from the Democrats. They're able to a la carte pick the issues that maybe they would vote for a Democrat over and still vote Republican, and get the Republican issues and pull abortion rights, oppose right to work, marijuana legalization, Medicaid expansion, minimum wage, go on down the list. It does feel like, if I were you, I'd be a little frustrated in the sense that the issues we want to run on kind of get cherry-picked with these IPs.
Yeah. So that's a really good deduction of what you see going on here. However, and you've been around this a long time, these other issues played a part usually in the primary. Right to work happened in the primary. Then we went to the general election. They voted for the same people. This is the first time we have them both on the ballot at the same time. And if I look at Senate District 15, where you have David Gregory, who wrote the ban on abortion, running against Joe Peerless, who's been a defender of women making their own health care decisions, I think that's going to be a big part. Matter of fact, David Gregory mentioned himself on his website, because mistakenly put all his things out there, the reasons why he doesn't fit his own district. And one of them is vouchers, and one of them is that, his position on the complete ban of abortion.
I want to talk about the 15th. It's a very interesting race. I even got Senator Luetkemeyer to almost tip his cap to you that you did a good job in recruiting Joe Peerless. That I think was the best recruit of the cycle for either side. If you're talking about, when I think of Democrats that could actually win swing areas, Scott Sifton, yourself, it's not, frankly, been a long list the last 10 years of Missouri politics. Joe Peerless is cut from that Claire McCaskill, Jay Nixon, Doug Beck, Scott Sifton mold.
Look, Joe, I've known Joe for several years now. I can't take all credit for recruiting him. We had all hands on deck trying to find somebody to run in that district that fit that district well. And Joe was the guy, and he's just a great guy. If you look at his service with the Red Cross and the things he's done for his community to give back, and used to be a Republican and now is a Democrat. But like you said, he's a middle of the road, normal person that's going to make good decisions and try to move the state forward.
In the age of identity politics, though, in the history, you look at the history of the state of Missouri, those dudes with a little gray in their hair, they've actually done pretty well. As much as they're demonized, folks look like you've done pretty well in this state.
I hope so.
Let's talk about that race, though. It does feel like a couple things. One, the school choice community is usually very financially active in some of these races. I have not seen that in the 15th. David Gregory, lots of political talent. And frankly, historically, that district's been Republican. Does it come down to, you mentioned school choice, and you mentioned Amendment 3. Which I would assume, from what you're telling me, polls, I believe the Amendment 3. If you're telling me school choice polls poorly there, fine. I have not seen the financial have come behind Gregory from that crowd. And I guess, to me, will the intensity, do you believe, on Amendment 3 help elect Joe Peerless?
Well, I think that's part of it for sure. I think that'll definitely help Joe. But Joe will help himself because he's just a great candidate, as you already mentioned. He'll get his message out there. It's going to probably be the most expensive race by far this season. And I know David. I came in with David Gregory, but I was there when he voted for charter schools. I was there when he voted for vouchers. I was there when he he missed 500 votes. And these are all things that he has put out that's on his own website that I think he mistakenly did, to reason why he doesn't fit that district. And that's what we're running for. And you mentioned school choice. I think that's a little misnomer.
Win a swing district in South County. He does not come off message. It doesn't matter. You can't blast him off message. Let's talk about a guy that reminds me a little bit of you, though. So Maggie Nurnberg has all the makings of a star in the Democratic Party. Hardworking, attractive, articulate, can raise money. And I think she was about to walk into that seat, which is a swing district, maybe tilted to the Democrats, but competitive. Then Jerry Nolte come up. Jerry Nolte is a great politician and is very well liked in Clay County. I'm not sure there's any other person in that district that could give her a run for her money but Jerry Nolte. Tip your hat to the Republicans, right? Good recruit.
No, I agree with you. I mean, Jerry's got a lot of name ID in that district. He's been around for a long time. And when you're around for a long time, you do build that name ID. You also bring the baggage that comes with you for being a politician in that area for a long time. And he's got some things. But Maggie, we have confidence in Maggie. She's working really hard up there. She's a teacher. She's a mom. She's worked across party lines to do bipartisan things. And that's why we think she's going to win. She's really working hard. Super proud that she's on our team.
Spend money there to help her come across the finish line.
Well, I think we probably already have. So
Well, I guess my point would be until Jerry Nolte filed, I don't think you probably had to allocate any money to that, and Maggie was going to win comfortably. I think the difference with Jerry Nolte is you're going to have some money. There's only so much money for anyone. Some of that money is going to have to go to the 17th that maybe you weren't counting on having to spend there because Jerry's a great candidate.
Yeah, we count everything, Scott. I mean, that's a priority for us to keep that seat. Lauren Arthur was a great senator there. We expect Maggie to be the same. Lauren is a big loss for us, but Maggie's a big addition for us, and that's number one priority, right? Is
her
to get
energy.
Maggie.
Can you imagine how long she could filibuster for without even inquiring of anybody? I mean, you could night off for she could probably take a shift by herself.
Now, as you know, we don't look towards filibusters, but it's nice to have the ammunition in your pocket.
Senator Doug Beck, we're going to come back maybe election night and talk a little politics. Let's see if these predictions come true.
Yeah, we're going to have our watch party at the place called the Canteen. It'll be at the 9 Mile Garden. True, you were right across the street at one of the pubs in the past when you came to Afton, so it's a great place.
Senator, thank you so much for the time.
Thanks, Scott.
That was Senator Tony Luetkemeyer and Senator Doug Beck, both sides of the state Senate. You kind of get a window into how those folks are thinking as they head into November. And as we head into the election time, we hope you'll come back and see us here on This Week in Missouri Politics.
This Week in Missouri Politics is sponsored by the Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, Ameren, Spire, and the United Electric Cooperative.